Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another week of Tim's News Explosion. During these news blasts, I untwist the established news narrative of the week, and there's some pretty big narratives that have been pushed, I must say, in a fast-paced 30-minute digest every Monday evening. We are live, as always, on the Wilms Front YouTube and D-Live channels. Hello to everyone in the live chat, and you can interact with the show and, well, myself in particular, by clicking on the entropy link where you can send through a super chat to support the show or ask a question. It is Monday, the 26th of July, 2021. It is 8:30 p.m. here in Melbourne, Victoria, where as of right now, we are still in lockdown limbo with an announcement of if and how the Andrews government plans to exit lockdown number 5 is due tomorrow. South Australia is also due to come out of lockdown tomorrow. At present still, half the country is still in lockdown with obviously the most, you would say, bleak lockdown situation in Greater Sydney, which looks set to continue for a long time with daily new cases still in the hundreds, with the Premier Gladys Berejiklian, with the support of Prime Minister Scott Morrison, are considering even tougher restrictions, even though they're encouraging everyone to get vaccinated. They say that getting case numbers down to zero is what will end the lockdown, this current lockdown, rather than more people getting vaccinated, if that makes sense. The focus, obviously, the focus of the mainstream media this weekend was on the lockdown protests, which took place, well, not just Australia-wide, but worldwide. The Worldwide Rally for Freedom, it was called. These included protests in the capital cities of the 3 lockdown states. And now, of course, Dan Andrews, the Victorian Premier, was the most outraged, fuming at these protesters, calling them evil. He went as far as that. He also made this claim as well about the protesters.
And frankly, seriously, I'm making a serious point. I don't know what half of them were protesting against.
You.
Well,
a lot of them.
Then, well, good on them. Except it's illegal.
Good on you for protesting against me, but it's illegal. He wasn't expecting, I think, that journalist there to retort like that. Now, obviously, during the 5 lockdowns that have occurred in Melbourne, there's been various anti-lockdown protests, and they've normally been met with quite a sizable and well-armed Victoria Police presence under the jurisdiction of Assistant Commissioner Luke Cornelious, also known as Chief Wiggum. Now, he thought, and well, I thought as well, that he and the rest of Victoria Police had beaten the Victorian public into compliance and submission throughout all the various lockdowns because, well, during the 4th lockdown, the Victoria Police managed to both charge and silence Nick Patterson and Pastor Paul Furlong. During the lead up to Saturday, Luke Cornelious, his police minions went around as usual to mail out threatening letters to known anti-lockdown protesters or agitators. We've got a question in the chat. It says, Peter loves triple-decker butt plugs. Wow, he's delusional. I assume you mean Daniel Andrews there. But Luke Cornelious came out on the Sunday. It was also on Radio 3AW with Neil Mitchell this morning, saying that even he was taken by surprise with the huge, it almost looked like tens of thousands of protesters in Melbourne, and this was a part of his remarks. And this is in widescreen, so you can see all of his figure.
Hundreds of Victoria Police members found themselves yesterday dealing with thousands of people who weren't wearing a mask, who weren't practicing social distance, and engaging in protest activity which was unlawful, and engaging in conduct which put our members at serious risk. Now, of course, our members wear PPE, they wear masks, they wear eye protection. But when you're dealing with a crowd of 5,000 people in circumstances where you're in close contact, within the context of a virus which is so contagious, can you imagine how our members feel when they go home at night and they talk to their partners and their kids? Is it safe for me to go home? What am I bringing home with me?
Well, I would reply to Luke Cornelius, if they're that worried, then why did they decide to be in the presence of these protesters who they believe have the virus? He didn't make any remarks there, Luke Cornelius, whether the Victoria police officers had been vaccinated or not. But as we saw last year, we know what Luke Cornelius is capable of, and he vowed that Victoria Police are going to ramp up their surveillance and enforcement in the lead up to the next anti-lockdown pro-freedom protest. Based on what he said, whether it's going to be held during a lockdown or not, the Victoria Police are going to go even harder against the anti-lockdown agitators, and we saw that on full display last year. So you can expect Luke Cornelius, Chief Wiggum to bounce back with an even bigger attempted flattening of these protesters. We've got a super chat here from Dia Beltran, who I believe was at the Sydney anti-lockdown protest. I hope I don't receive a fine for going to the Sydney protest on the weekend. I'm thinking about dobbing on Peter Grace from Elwood for going to his local one. He would be very pissed off. Interesting thought there, Dia. Now, turning our attention to the Sydney anti-lockdown protest, which was even bigger than the Melbourne one, and I must say it was a very diverse crowd. The New South Wales Police, in response to the protests, they've launched what they call Strike Force Season launch following the Sydney CBD protest, and they've said this is their biggest police response operation since the Cronulla riots. But obviously, the difference with the anti-lockdown protest in Sydney on the weekend was the fact that there were Anglos and ethnics there together, but they were all on the same side. Well, as in Cronulla, obviously they were facing off against each other there. Now, there were a few familiar faces at the Sydney protest that I noticed there. One even gave a speech. That was Joel Jamal, who's he's had a couple of YouTube channels nuked, but he's still very active on Facebook and Instagram. This was a snippet of his speech.
City! Gladys, we have a right to protest! Gladys, you have forgotten the oath you took to this city. You are from the Armenian people. A pomegranate, the sign of the Armenian people. It was the Anzac soldiers that freed the Armenian. When the Anzac soldiers were in the Middle East, The children were running from a genocide, but the Anzac soldiers were there to catch them. Aussie, Aussie, Aussie! Aussie, Aussie, Aussie!
Also, there was, well, it has also been a guest on Wilms Front, and is a regular on Sky News and author of the book Make the Liberal Party Great Again. John Ruddick attended.
Okay, so we're here at the Sydney Freedom Rally. I'm already seeing things in media saying it's violent. This is the most peaceful, happy protest I've ever seen. People are smiling for the first time. Let's see if there's a big outbreak of Delta, because no one's got the mask on. I don't think there will be. But I just want to stress this has been a peaceful, happy, good protest and extremely well attended. Let's triple it next week.
And now John Ruddick has now decided that you can't make the Liberal Party great again. He's joined the Liberal Democrats, the classical Liberal Libertarian Party, which there are two very vocal and active members of the Victorian upper house who've been speaking up against the 5 lockdowns here, David Limbrick and Tim Quilty. John Ruddick has announced he's going to stand for the Liberal Democrats in the seat of Warringah on Sydney's northern beaches, which was Tony Abbott's seat, but is currently held by independent Zali Steggall. And there is also talk, speculation today that with Campbell Newman, former Queensland Premier, quitting the Queensland LNP in disgust at their abandonment of small government individual liberty principles, that he'll join the Liberal Democrats and stand for them at the Senate at the next election. We'll have to watch this space here. And now John Ruddick was piled on Twitter for saying that it was a peaceful protest, one of the most peaceful that he'd seen. It was a mostly peaceful protest. There was some video vision of some protesters throwing stuff at police and police horses, but the photograph which was put around to show that, well, to demonstrate that these protesters were violent buffhead ratbags. Buffheads was the word that New South Wales Police Minister David Elliott described them as when announcing Strike Force seasoned. So this was the still photograph here with this gentleman wearing the free speech shirt, which said, "More important than your feelings," which it makes it look out that he is punching a police horse who was named Tobruk in the head there. And this is an article from Cauldron Pool, which says police accused of fake news after video emerged of man punching horse. So let's go further down here. This was the still here, and this is the actual footage here. Now, obviously, our podcast listeners won't get to see that there, but what it shows is that police officer was coming towards him, and he basically just put his elbow out in self-defense. Well, I would say as a shield. That's what I'd say. He'd put his elbow out in a shield to make sure that he wasn't going to basically get flattened by this police force, but the still photograph was, I'm not sure if it was a photograph or whether it was a still from the video that was beamed around. I've seen the media use stills before to propagate fake news. I remember at the St Kilda Beach rally or political meeting against African crime at the beginning of 2019, there was a gentleman who was, well, what he was doing is he was waving to the left-wing protesters to say, oh, hello, look how pathetic you are. But the still photograph made it look like that he was doing a Hitler salute there. And so that was showing that that look, there's Nazis at this rally. Now, also who spoke at the Sydney Freedom Rally was, well, he's known as the TikTok guy, his real name is John Bernard Carutz. He was the one who was getting the leak from New South Wales Health about the next day's daily COVID numbers, which the New South Wales Health flushed out the week. But he made a comeback to prominence at the Sydney protest.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be here as the People's Premier. Yeah! Now, I will say, I've crunched the numbers. I don't think the cases are going to be going up tomorrow, but from what I've calculated, there's over 50,000 people here today. Yeah! For everyone that's here, small businesses, people that are doing it tough, all we want is freedom. Yeah! Freedom! Yeah! Nice beat.
Now, the response to him being there on social media, particularly Twitter in particular, the condemnation of these Freedom Day protests across social media and Twitter in particular was, I would say, even more, I would say, loud and vocal. That they've never liked these freedom protests, those particularly the blue drops on social media. But there was especially this time, a lot of unpleasant words said about them, to put it mildly there. And a lot of the comments were shame on the mainstream media for building this guy's profile up. But if they actually had been following this guy on TikTok for a while, they would know that he is anti-lockdown and has mocked the restrictions, as he mocked Gladys's no browsing rule.
No browsing. Do not browse grocery shopping. Browsing is not a good enough reason. Do not browse.
Yes, and obviously it was comments such as that where, well, Gladys's a gold standard crown well and truly was lost. And, well, our Chief Health Officer, Kerry Chant, has basically descended into, well, an even worse version of, say, Nicola Spurrier in South Australia, or Brett Sutton in Victoria, or Jeanette Young in Queensland. And she's gone global for comments such as this and a TikTok message, which is at the end of this clip.
Whilst it is in human nature to engage in conversation with others, to be friendly, unfortunately, this is not the time to do that. So even if you run into your next door neighbour in the shopping centre, in the Coles, whilst you're at Coles or Woolworths or Aldi or any other grocery shop, don't start up a conversation. Now is the time for minimising your interactions with others. Even if you've got a mask, do not think that affords total protection. We want to be absolutely sure that as we go about our daily lives, we do not come into contact with anyone else that would pose a risk.
I mean, I would start by just sort of saying that COVID is real. You know, it's a very serious disease, and it can affect your loved ones and you and your loved ones. And I think we just need to remove the myth that it's just like a common cold. Okay, it's not.
So she did that TikTok live Q&A, Kerry Chant, to reach the Gen Y and the Gen Z to say, well, COVID affects you as well, because there was this confirmation of death of this 38-year-old Sydney woman who died with COVID. We're told that she had no pre-existing conditions there, but well, obviously you saw there that she had the mask on during the TikTok appearance there. I noticed this comment from Kreshko: while you're at it, no web browsing either. Yes, if you're talking to people online, it seems that Kerry Chant is saying, oh, you've got to wear a mask as well. Hadron Anti-Bullying says Gladys is in love. She has a new boyfriend. Did you know that? Yes, the lawyer represented her at ICAC, Arthur Moses, SC, and yes, the pair of them were snapped and put on the front of the Daily Telegraph last week, getting a takeaway coffee, which, despite the fact she said don't leave your house unless it is absolutely necessary and wear a mask with people you don't live with. Well, she was snapped there, maskless, getting a takeaway coffee. Couldn't she just make one at home with a new boyfriend, Arthur Moses, there? And she looked very, very surprised that the Daily Telegraph snapparazzi were there. Now, obviously, the you would say government health messaging is that vaccines are the only way to prevent future lockdowns. Well, vaccine take-up, enough Australians getting vaccinated, and because of the situation in Sydney, New South Wales is now begging other states to give some of their precious Pfizer vaccines to New South Wales and direct to the young essential workers in southwestern Sydney. This is because it's a national emergency now. Apparently, the outbreak in Sydney.
Dr. Chant gave the crisis cabinet very strong advice that she considered that what we were going through here in New South Wales is a national emergency. By that, what she was really saying was we need the help that other states and territories could possibly give us. I want to remind those other states and territories that last time I looked, we were a commonwealth. We worked together. And it disturbs me that it would appear that all we've ever done to work together has just seemingly been cast aside.
You wouldn't have been surprised, though, that the other states knocked back your request for more Pfizer doses, given that just last month you said that we couldn't give our Pfizer, or New South Wales couldn't give its Pfizer to Victoria.
Well, I'm not sure what comments you're referring to, but the bottom line...
So I heard that Victoria wants some of our Pfizer vaccines. They're not getting it.
No, I can't.
Good.
The feds are giving them more anyway.
Okay, so they're not coming from New South Wales?
No, the federal government has from last week given them more AstraZeneca, I think. But
why does everyone look to us to save their own stupid decisions?
I can't comment on that.
Why do Melbourne, right, or Victoria... You know, when we get a couple of cases, we kind of control it and it calms down very quickly. What happens in Victoria where it just gets away from them?
I keep saying to people, it's not for me to comment on what other governments do.
Yeah, but off the record, what do you think?
I've just got we've got the confidence that our system's in place, our public's used to doing things a particular way, and it's a question of trust. And it's harder, it's much easier to lock down because you don't have to worry about anything. It's much more difficult to let people move around when the virus is circulating. And that's been a challenge for us, but it's been a worthwhile challenge.
Well, looks like Gladys is finding locking down to get cases down is harder than she thought. It seems that she's finding, making a lockdown successful or getting compliance harder than she thought. She told Kyle and Jackie O a month ago that lockdowns were easy, and the reason why I included that Kyle and Jackie O clip there is because in the latest Sydney Breakfast Radio survey, Kyle and Jackie O were the number one program. They had leapfrogged 2GB, which obviously Alan Jones was the number one breakfast host there for 20 years. Ben Fordham succeeded him in the middle of last year. But the survey showed even though 2GB is still number one Sydney-wide, Kyle and Jackie O are now, the nation's most influential broadcaster. King Kyle, that's the kingkyle.com, that's his web address. He is now King Kyle of Sydney Radio now, the nation's most influential broadcaster. It's no longer Jonestown, it is a Kyletown. And now both the federal and state health authorities are now they're appearing on Kyle's program to reach the masses there, and also to get him to sell the vax, and this was the promotional video that Kyle released.
And as Kyle Sandilands said, get vax, baby. That's what we need in New South Wales. That's what we need indeed across the country.
All right, stop. Vaccinate and listen. We are back with a brand new injection. Someone grabbed a hold of you tightly, rolled up your sleeves with a daily or nightly. Will this ever stop? Yo, we don't know. But stuck in lockdown really blows. Too many people think vax is a scandal. Take 2 shots and COVID's handled. Pfizer or AstraZeneca. What rhymes with AstraZeneca? Oh yeah, America. One of 100 places you can travel to. So just relax. Lay down your tinfoil hats and just get vaxxed. So we can go back to the old ways. Shaking hands, kissing strangers all day. Get vaxxed, baby. That's right. Get vaxxed, baby. What are you waiting for? It's there. Get vaxxed, baby. Gonna sit at home your whole life unvaccinated? Go get in the vaccination line today. Get vaxxed, baby.
Kyle can do Get Vax Baby, and I tell you what, it was a light in my life this morning.
Congratulations, guys. I love Get Vax Baby.
Oh, you do.
I sent it to my kids last night, and they loved it too.
And now Savnik says people still listen to radio. Well, they don't really listen to it, but as you saw with those clips, that Kyle and Jackie O's radio program is filmed and then uploaded on YouTube. Clearly Gladys in that interview didn't realize that there was a video version that was going to be posted on YouTube. You saw her pick her nose a few times. It was all captured on camera, quite gross. And obviously there's podcasts as well. And I'm not sure. Maybe he just wanted to put out a PSA there, because as you can see there, that Kyle Sandilands, he's the perfection of health there. He's just turned 50 there. He's about as healthy looking as Magda Szubanski. So, we have the COVID health ambassador here in Victoria, Magda Szubanski. And up in New South Wales and Sydney, they have Kyle Sandilands there as well. Now, moving on to tonight's other big topic, and Alex Mann of the ABC and the background briefing investigative radio program slash podcast, who has done a number of hit pieces, radio programs on the Australian far right. Now, as you can see by Alex Mann's appearance there, there's a reason why he's on radio there. You normally only hear him in audio form there. So his sort of breakthrough story was exposing the members of the Lads Society in 2018 in Sydney, who joined the New South Wales Young National Party. And then he followed up at the beginning of 2019 with a program about who he thought the identity of David Clarkson was, who is this you would say this social media personality who exposes far left neo-fascist left-wing bigots who troll people right of center on the internet. Has released a series of exposure clips on various far left trolls. Now, in my opinion, he did the story with Osman Faruqi as well. It was called Doxed because Osman Faruqi apparently been doxed by Avi Yemeni, who published his phone number. And so they went around the country trying to figure out or hunted down who they believed was David Clarkson. In my opinion, they didn't find who David Clarkson was. Nobody knows who David Clarkson is. He has managed to keep his identity quite the secret there. Now, for 2020, he didn't do much. He released a podcast series on the Whitlam dismissal, as if there hasn't been enough podcast, TV programs, books on the Whitlam dismissal of 75. But he came back earlier this year with an expose on this far-right extreme group no one had ever heard of, called the Base, which apparently recruits people from all around the world. And Alex Mann managed, through these recordings that were leaked to him, managed to track down that one of the recruits who was vetted was a Perth resident who stood for One Nation, I think at the 2017 state election there. But he was back with another program where he revealed the real name of, what would you say, shock far right social media personality CatBoyKami, who came to my attention when a few on Telegram. Many of his he used to do these, what is it called, Omegle chats, talk to strangers, and it was basically him using the N-word and other shocking and outrageous language in front of black strangers. And so this was a story that the Daily Mail wrote in July 2020. The headline is, "What an evil human, sick moment. Australian YouTuber paints his face black and uses the N-word as he mocks the death of George Floyd in racist stunt." He painted his face black and dressed as a police officer, pointed a gun at a black woman, I don't think it was a real gun, on a web chat and told her to get on the ground, told her to get down so he could lean on her neck. "Come on, N-word," he said. In another video, tells a young black boy on web chat, "What's good, my N?" The boy, who appears stunned, could be heard saying, "Oh my God," repeatedly. YouTuber CatBoyKami mocks the death of George Floyd, saying, "I can't breathe." And so this features, well, when this was one of his videos there where he put blackface on, and he called himself a trans N-word. And goes further down here. This is him dressing up as a police officer there. As you can see, he's quite a handsome lad and likes to show it off there. So this was the Alex Mann, you would say, article that he published in conjunction with the background briefing episode. He's now in Arizona in the United States. He sort of chaperone into the US was Nick Fuentes of America First. And he was at a Stop the Steal rally where these Mexican Biden supporters confronted them, and this was the exchange here. There's the trigger warning by the ABC.
Yeah, you do. Wait, who's this? Brianna Sachs from BuzzFeed News. BuzzFeed News. Oh, hi. I'm CatBoyKami, and I hate
You're racist! You're racist! So what? All you are seeing, that's what Trump is.
USA! 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 USA!
And now this article, and the program also explains that Alex Mann used the research done by former ABC tech reporter Ariel Bogle, who is now an analyst at the Australian Strategic Policy Institute. Now, you may have heard of this institute before. Their commentators appear regularly on Sky News to talk about China. What you probably don't know is that this Policy Institute receives a lot of government funding from Australian defence agencies and also overseas as well. So it is no way independent. And so what you had here was a government-funded or taxpayer-funded network, I should say, the ABC, teaming up with a taxpayer-funded Policy Institute to investigate to find out the real identity of this, or you would say, social media shock troll. And well, this article gives a sort of insight into what the ABC and ASBI think and fear about CatBoyKami. It was such a good example of the weaponization of humor in the far right movement. It sort of dared you to get offended or think it was gross or get upset by it. And if you did that, it kind of got you. And so his real name is Tor Gustafsson Brooks, which actually doesn't sound like his real name. That sounds like another alias there. He was apparently born in Sweden and grew up in Ipswich. And so it talks about, Alex Mann also spoke with Jared Holt, who is, he's a known, you would say, anti-patriot, anti-right-wing, anti-free speech advocate in the United States. He says CatBoyKami is more than just an offensive jokester and he deserves to be unmasked. His actions have traumatized people. They have targeted children. He's connected to active white nationalist organizing network that is seeking to push very brutal agenda items targeting minorities. And so it talks about Alex Mann managed to, when he got his real name, track down people who knew him from school. He pushed the boundaries from a young age, had an ambitious vision for his online future, saved his pocket money to buy Bitcoin. Well, that was a very wise investment, and looked up to global online superstars like PewDiePie. PewDiePie has radicalized more people, it seems. At home, he and his brother were encouraged to speak freely. Nothing was taboo. In the last few years of high school, he started adopting more provocative usernames like Tiberian gay cunt, when I come in her hair, and later raped on the privates. One of his classmates from high school, Jack, says Tor lacked social skills and didn't know how to talk to people correctly. Didn't really understand how people work. Well, they never say this in this ABC program, but it's quite obvious that CatBoyKami has autism, Asperger's syndrome. That's very clear because of the way that he, when talking to these black teenagers on Omegle, the way that he just deadpan uses these racial slurs. Like, it's not aggressive at all. He just uses them casually in Australian accent, and so it's clearly there that he has some sort of autism there. And it goes further on here. This article talks to one of his people he knew from high school, Jack. So they started playing Modern Warfare 2, and people playing these games often use vile language. And so, although it doesn't say explicitly here, there's an implication that online video gaming is a gateway to the alt-right racism. And then has a few more still shots here, and then it goes to his relationship with Nick Fuentes there. So what is it? Nick Fuentes has praised CatBoyKami, says it's because he has a good sense of humor, it's because he's good looking. But there hasn't been much of CatBoyKami lately. That's because he was raided by the FBI around the same time that one of his copycats, Paul Miller, the Gypsy Crusader, was raided by the FBI for wielding actual firearms during an Amiga live stream when he's a convicted felon. Now, Gypsy Crusader, Paul Miller, he was much more aggressive and abusive when he was on the Amiga chats, really yelling and screaming and aiming to insult these black people that he was coming into, while, as I said, CatBoyKami just used it as deadpan. He just delivered it in a deadpan there. And this was one of his last known, statements or messages on Telegram after the FBI raid.
Proof of life, I guess. So I'm sure a lot of you have already heard I was raided earlier, and I don't really want to talk about it while there's an ongoing investigation. So I'd appreciate it if people didn't ask me questions and stuff that I'm obviously not able to answer. A little bit dinged up there. But yeah, so now you know.
Now finish off this summary of the background briefing episode that, Jared Holt said, I think it's incredibly important whenever we have figures like this, to the degree that we're able and to the degree that it's appropriate, to kind of tell a full story of who they are, because the way that we can kind of deter people from joining onto these bandwagons is bringing a certain degree of accountability to it. And Alex Mann sent CatBoyKami a number of questions, but didn't respond. But we will see because obviously he's been a bit shaken by the FBI's attention to him when he's in Arizona in the United States. Now, obviously in this ABC report, they try to dress CatBoyKami up as a real dangerous, hateful, vile, disgusting person. And I'm not a fan of shocking, offensive, racial insults, but he has harmed no one, CatBoyKami. He obviously, and these black teenagers, the way they react, they're not like crying, triggered. They're just sort of shocked that somebody would say that. That's their sort of reaction there. So I don't think that they're traumatized by it. They're certainly shocked that someone in the 2020s would say something like that to their face. But he hasn't hurt anyone. Obviously, they try to tie him up to the January 6th storming of the Capitol because of his association with Baked Alaska, who was charged for going into Nancy Pelosi's office there. But yeah, obviously, as I said, what he says is shocking, outrageous, but in the end, he's just used words and, from behind a computer screen, like he's distanced from these people in a computer screen there. We'll see if he returns in some form, because he's been nuked. He's had several YouTube and Instagrams nuked. We shall see if he makes a return there. But I suggest you listen to the Alex Mann background briefing episode in full. It's always cringe, these background briefing episodes, how they always, it's poor storytelling. It's amateurish storytelling where Alex Mann is, I want to find out who he is. What is it? And it's always, he has a conversation with the executive producer of background briefing, Alice Brennan. It's very cringe, but it's worth listening to see how the ABC, Alex Mann in particular, goes after somebody like CatBoyKami there. Well, that's the show for tonight. I hope you found it informative and insightful, and also provided a different perspective there. I'll be back later in the week with Wilms Front, 8:30 p.m. Melbourne time on the Wilms Front channels, and then Trad Tasman Talk with Dewey DeBoer, 6 p.m. Melbourne time on the Unshackled YouTube channel. Please stay safe and happy and optimistic despite these dark times we're in. I'll see you Thursday for Wilms Front and next Monday for another Tim's News Explosion. Good night, everybody. Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News